Hello, everybody. For the next few weeks, we are going to be discussing some selections from Sir Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, or The Death of Arthur. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction today about who Malory was. He was writing in the late 15th century, the end of the Middle Ages. We don't know a whole lot about his life, except that we believe he was a soldier. He belonged to an old Warwickshire family. And he inherited his father's estate probably in the 1430s. But the most interesting thing about him is that if we are to believe the records, he was also a criminal. It could have been trumped up charges because of the politics of the day, but he was accused of a number of different kinds of crimes. The records allege that he lay in ambush with the intent of murdering the Duke of Buckingham. He broke into the Abbey of Blessed Mary of Combe and stole money and valuables from the abbot's chest. A few days later, he returned and insulted the abbot. On two occasions, he stole property and forced the wife of Hugh Smith. What else did he do? He had 8 imprisonments varying in length from a few days to 2.5 years, as well as 2 dramatic escapes, one in which he swam the moat at Coleshill Prison. So Le Morte d'Arthur, what you're reading, is prison literature. What we think he did is he took all the stories about Arthur that he knew and he put them all together to pass the time while he was in prison. According to William Caxton, who introduced the printing press to England, and Malory's work was one of the first works that he put into print. According to Caxton, what Malory did was to reduce into English certain French prose romances of the 13th century. Caxton's version, by the way, was the only one known until in the 1930s, the discovery of a manuscript called the Winchester manuscript. It was found under the bed of a monk and who didn't realize what he had. So there we have 2 old editions of Malory, one by Caxton and then the Winchester manuscript. So Malory's sources, what did he do? He put together many of the stories that he had read, and these are a list of some of the ones that we believe he knew. He tells some of the stories we've read before, so we're going to get his version of how Arthur was born, the story of Igraine and Uther. We're going to get the story of the Knight of the Cart. You'll get to read that one again. So all of those stories he was putting together. He did not know Chrétien de Troyes, and we don't think he knew Geoffrey of Monmouth, but he knew later works that had mimicked those. So how does he thread together the various tales in Le Morte d'Arthur? The nice thing is that you can almost read them individually, like separate little short stories. So we're going to do that. But roughly, if you put them together, they do tell the life story of Arthur from birth to death. So here's some things to think about as you read. So we're starting out with Merlin. It's the same story Geoffrey of Monmouth told. And as you're reading, you should think about the events leading to the crowning of Arthur and look how they differ. It'd be a good paper to compare how Malory and Geoffrey both portray Arthur's coming to the crown and Uther's death. Look at the portrayals of Kay. And there are also some things that I'm going to mention to you that aren't in your book, in your selections. And one is the way that Mordred was born. Mordred was born when Arthur sleeps with his aunt. And this is after Arthur has been with Guinevere. So it really is a pretty disgraceful thing. But Arthur actually has 3 women that we know he's with in Malory's work. The first one he begets a son on. That child dies. Then, of course, he marries Guinevere. And while married to Guinevere, he has an affair with a woman that he does not know, but it is his aunt, Morgause. And together they give birth to this son named Mordred. So Mordred is Arthur's son and nephew. How twisted is that? In Arthur's defense, he didn't know it was his sister. It sounds like Joe Dirt, I know. Sorry for that. At any rate, another story that we get here is how Arthur gets Excalibur, and this too would be really good to compare with Geoffrey of Monmouth. The sword that Arthur pulls from the stone is not Excalibur. It's a different sword. He pulls the sword from the stone, and then in Malory's account, he breaks that sword. And he's with Merlin, and Merlin tells him, I can get you another sword. Get into this boat with me. And they float across a lake, and the Lady of the Lake gives Arthur this wonderful sword it is named Excalibur. When we read the second tale we're going to read, it picks up where the Lady of the Lake gives Arthur the sword Excalibur, but she tells him, "You got to do me a favor. The next thing I ask for, you need to do it." That's called a rash boon. And so Arthur's in a really bad position in that work. So these are some things to look for as you read Merlin, and you might want to come back and look at these questions again. So the second story we're going to read is the story of Balin, the knight with the two swords. I call him the bad luck knight. He makes so many mistakes, so many people die because of Balin, but I'm going to argue that it isn't really his fault. He's trying to be a good knight, just like Gawain. Chivalry is a hard thing to fall through with, and for Balin, he gets in a lot of pickles because of the chivalric code. The story opens up with him killing the Lady of the Lake, but he does have reasons, so see what you think about that. And that kind of causes a string of bad luck. Merlin appears occasionally in this story, as you'll see, and then Merlin pretty much disappears from Malory. He's not there for a long time guiding Arthur, really, in any of these works. The dolorous stroke is what leads to the search for the Holy Grail, which we're going to not talk about a whole lot, but it is when Balin accidentally injures someone that he should not injure. So Balin is the bad luck knight. All right, then we're going to read the Knight of the Cart. Same story that we read in Chrétien's work, only much shorter, and there are a lot of differences. And you will be responsible for recognizing the differences. We're going to read the story of Lancelot and Elaine. Elaine is the mother of Galahad. Galahad is Lancelot's son. Here's the deal. Lancelot loves Guinevere. He's not supposed to sleep with anybody else. But you'll see that Elaine tricks him 2 times into sleeping with her. And consequently, Galahad, the greatest of all knights, is born. So here's some questions you can come back and review. And I'll try to post these questions for you guys separately as well. You're not going to like Guinevere. Some of you already don't. But in this portrayal, Guinevere is jealous. She's petty. The Poisoned Apple is a story where she gets into some trouble and Lancelot has to rescue her. Some questions there for you. Also, hey, before you take the quizzes, look at these questions. It'll help you so much. We're going to read a very sad story called The Fair Maid of Astolat that continued. There are a number of versions of this into the Victorian age, but it's another woman who's in love with Lancelot. And Guinevere really doesn't do him right. She's married. He's single. All these other women are much more eligible than Guinevere. But this is a story, a very sad story of a woman and her love for Guinevere. Then we're going to look at the death of Arthur. We get to kill everybody off, but don't worry, we'll bring them back to life. But this is a story, again, we've seen it before in shorter version or different version, about how Arthur and Guinevere's affair is ultimately uncovered. Notice Chrétien de Troyes' Lancelot never really mentioned the affair. It was there, but there was no criticism, no comment about it. For Malory, though, it's an issue. So here's some questions that you consider. And one is Arthur's reaction. I mean, aren't you wondering, is Arthur that stupid that he doesn't know his wife is having an affair? And the answer is that, as you'll see when you read it, he does suspect. It's just that the round table is ultimately more important to him. So I have a number of questions for you here that, again, you definitely want to go back and read. And then I'm hoping that we can find the movie Excalibur that we can all watch that's based on this story. But we'll get to see what Mordred does. There's a great final battle, just like the Harry Potter final battle, the Game of Thrones final battle. It's kind of a traditional thing that you see. And in it, you'll see what becomes of all of these characters that we've been working with so far this semester. And let me tell you also, when we're done reading Malory, really most of the reading for this semester is over. It's done with. After that, we'll be looking at modern portrayals, and there won't be so many readings except a few online readings. So hang in there. Some of these readings are long, but they're really good stories. Okay, so we've been reading these nice translations. Chrétien de Troyes' Lancelot was actually written in French. Malory is writing in Middle English. So if this link works for me, I'm going to show off just a little bit. I'm going to let you hear what it sounds like. And what are we looking? Okay, this is from the opening of the story of Balin, the Knight with the Two Swords. And this is I'm just going to read a few lines, but it's the opening scene where a lady comes in and challenges Arthur's court. And so this Lady Lille of Avilion took a hair this sword, that she brooked with her, and told there should no man pull it out of the shatha, but if he be honor of the best connectors of this rama, and he shall be hard and full of pruessa, and with that sweared he should slay her broder. This was the causa that the demoiselle Kama into this quarta. Ye knew it as well as ye. Would God she had not comen into this quarta. But she come never in fellowship of worship to do good, but always greta harma. So that's what Malory's Middle English would have sounded like. And here's what it looks like. So you're reading what's called a normalized translation of it. It preserves a little bit of old timiness, but it will be very readable for you. But I just wanted you to be able to see and hear what Middle English actually would have sounded like. Okay, so that's your introduction to Malory, kind of an overall introduction. I would come back and look at each set of questions before the quizzes. And please let me know if you have any questions. I sure hope you'll all enjoy Malory.